week in organizations, and I believe absolutely that they can. One of the quotes from the book said that as a leader, you should be able to shape culture, and our effectiveness depends on how well we can put a stamp on something. So I loved reading how the organizational culture at a company like Zappos, that is just considered really fun and upbeat and a crazy place. Instead of having a CFO or a CEO, they had a chief happiness officer. And I would love to work for a company like that, but unfortunately I never really have. Most of the organizations that I work for have been fairly strict and rigid. And even though I can tell that my leadership wants to have good energy and make it a positive workplace, I think most of the organizations that I've been in have struggled with making it fits and schedules and quotas and all of those things as a priority. So for me, I keep thinking one of these days when I retire, I'd love to either work for a company like Southwest Airlines, whose culture is making their workers their customers, so they want to make sure that everybody's always happy, or working for a place like Nordstrom's, where their workers have such a positive feeling about power to make decisions and do things on their own. So for me, I would love to be able to do that someday, but unfortunately I have not had the luxury or the luck for working with companies that are as fun as any of the ones that we read about this week. So Luther or Megan, do you want to hopefully talk about something more fun than my work experience?
I can go.
Okay.
Is it cool if I go next?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. So, kind of touching into like your point, in my experience, I've worked for, I think, relatively some pretty, cool companies. I think part of that was industry, kind of events-based or entertainment. And I think, as a whole, I think the workplace culture is a little more lax out here on the West Coast than like other parts of the country. And in one of my previous work experiences, the president actually, I think I talked about this a little before, where she actually would give us books to read. So we actually read some Jim Collins books and other business books about successful businesses and culture. So we actually did some studying about Zappos and kind of their company structure, and other companies like Southwest, Virgin Airlines is another one. So we kind of collectively studied some of these successful cultures and then try and implement some of those elements into our own company culture to create kind of an engaging or a positive culture where people feel happy at work, they want to come and work, they feel engaged, and they are more productive because they feel like they're a part of something bigger, right? Kind of like allowing us to kind of take pride in our workplace, because we have, if you can create the feeling of shared responsibility and keeping up this cool thing that your company has that's unique and appreciative, I think it can lead to a snowball effect, if you will, but in a positive nature. So people want to keep up that cool culture. Mm-hmm. So challenges with that, though, I think that we ran into at my company is the company had already been around for 20 years, and trying to implement cultural change wasn't important, and I think that there were some areas where it was successful, but the fact that you have existing processes and structures, and also relationships and existing political kind of struggles, I think it's challenging to kind of install something new while also dealing with, the legacy of those kind of issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true.
But I've definitely had, pretty positive experience with company cultures and haven't had too many negative ones personally.
What company do you work for right now? Or like what's the industry you work in?
Well, right now I do freelance, but the company I was speaking of is in like event production and experiential marketing.
Okay.
which it's a fun industry, and the people you deal with the end product is very fun, but it's just as uh, nerve-wracking and high pressure and very deadline driven
Yeah, that
as
sounds
other
pretty
industries.
stressful.
So yeah, so to kind of mitigate that stress and to keep it from becoming something nasty, you kind of have to have an emphasis on culture and creating a good team environment, and so you can have kind of an all hands on deck feeling. Otherwise, it can become kind of easy to buckle under the pressure and the stress of getting the job done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can really relate to that too because I currently work for Starbucks right now, and Starbucks has a really great organizational culture, and I'm thankful for that. Like they have a really team environment, and kind of what you said, Luther, like how I think organizational culture is really important because like it's funny that when people get hired at Starbucks, they initially think it's going to be like such a glamorous job. You get to make lattes and it's just all happy and easy. But it's really stressful sometimes because you have to have like you're on a time frame like all the time. You have to make sure like you're giving out quality products. You're within time frames of like if you have a drive-through, you have to make sure that you give out the drink within enough time. And like management from a management perspective, you have to make sure like your business is functioning correctly, you're not spending too much money, you're able to hit like all the sale quotas and all that. So for
Right.
organizational like culture, it's really driven at Starbucks because it's a very team environment, and they actually call their employees partners rather than like coworkers to kind of promote togetherness and like a team kind of setting.
Yeah, that's good.
Um, so, and it kind of provides a sense of community, which Starbucks is very big into. They're really big into like community events. Like my personal store, they give out tons of donations to local like schools. We do beach cleanups around the community. We do like parades, like where we give out free like coffee and free like food items. So it's really cool that it involves like the community, like rather than just its workers.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really glad that I have a good organizational culture experience with them. Let's see. Don't really. The only negative thing I can really think about with that is that I guess it's a lot to live up to sometimes. Like you have to make sure that the people that you hire for that company are able to fit within that organization. And I have seen some people get hired that don't really succeed in that type of work environment. So that's the only negative thing I could really think of that relates to that.
Yeah, I think kind of.
Go ahead.
No, I agree also, and kind of touching on that point, like I've seen in the past, like new hires, they may have all the technical skills and be super talented, but they're not a good cultural fit. So something that I was taught part of that process of building community and culture for the companies to work for Go West was that once you have the kind of culture and community that you want, it's super fragile. So you have to really protect it and guard it. And when let's say you forego a hire that has particular technical skills, but they fit in culturally, and everybody's vibing, I guess, for lack of a better word, then you kind of get a situation where the sum is greater than all the individual parts altogether, which should be a goal of building culture, I think.
I think a lot of organizations want to have a better culture, and they put things in place to encourage that. Company we recently had, we were all in Las Vegas for 6 days for like training, and they wanted to have like team building events and those kind of things and make it fun. But it was after sitting in a room for 12 hours and being talked at and like going through presentations after presentations. It's hard to have like an upbeat culture and make it fun after that. So I think even
Right.
the companies that want to, at the end of the day, the reality is hard.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how some cultures really succeed and how other ones can fail, you know, and how, and I liked how our book talked about how hard it was for organizational change to actually happen. And that goes to showing that you have to have really good leadership who has good goals and visions for the company, and they're able to, you know, motivate other people in order to follow that goal. But like I think Howard Schultz, because when he took over Starbucks, he really took the company into a whole new different direction. And without his leadership, I don't think the company would be where it's at now.
Okay. Hey, it looks like we're at almost 11 minutes, and we missed our two other group team members, but I think we had a great conversation about culture.
I did too. Alrighty. Well, I'll
Agreed.
send in the link. So